Two guys on completely different sides in the One Piece world. They both have Dull Fruit abilities known for its power. Akainu vs Whitebeard is a decade-long meme of a matchup that has generated more discussion than could probably even be fathomed by mere mortal men. From angry debates on old message boards to thousands of modern-day YouTube comment sections anytime a Marineford war clip is posted. Now I must admit that's how I entered the One Piece community, by debating Whitebeard vs Akainu in the comment section when I was just a common casual fan of the series. But nowadays I am more focused on the psychological battle these two took part in than the actual physical battle that broke the internet. As time has gone on, Akainu has gained much more appreciation as he now leads the Marines as the current fleet admiral, which has made things more fun when discussing these two iconic characters during the War of Best. However, let's be honest, nobody really cares. Well, let me rephrase that. The internet doesn't care about me dissecting these two characters' mind and actions. So with that being said, I decided to actually shock the One Piece fan base by, instead of highlighting the differences, I will do a deep dive on how these two actually share more similarities than you think. So like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this posted. Whitebeard starts the war with a natural disaster which leads to Aokiji freezing the epic tsunami caused by the world's strongest man. Jozu then uses this ice, like this huge iceberg, to hurl a huge chunk of it towards the Marines, which leads to Akainu evaporating it and causing his own natural disaster, a volcano explosion with volcanic rocks coming down on the Whitebeard pirates. I personally feel this was Oda's way of showcasing how destructive these two men could truly be during the Marineford War, as these two were the only ones capable of causing a natural disaster, of course excluding Blackbeard, who stole Whitebeard's Dofru at the end of the war. But that's not the significant similarity I wanted to highlight. It's the dialogue that truly made me notice. Case in point, after these two flex their Delphi abilities, they also partake in some banter, with Nugate telling Sakazuki to go put your skills to work on a birthday cake, which I found hilarious, Magma boy. And the Red Dog replies with, "Do you not approve of Galdi's funeral, Whitebeard?" Not only is Akainu alluding to Ace's death, but also the world's strongest man's demise as well. And Whitebeard is clearly letting Akainu know his attack was all for flair, rather than actually causing harm to anybody with significant power, including Whitebeard and his commanders. All in all, this won't be the only time these two would actually clash in a war of words and abilities, as their attacks were both reckless and words both had double meanings. They both see a big future for Luffy. Akainu, knowing Luffy is Dragon's son and Garp the hero's grandson, says that this is the pirate that most certainly needs to be defeated over even Ace and Whitebeard. Also, Whitebeard later on says, "Use all your strength to support Straw Hat Luffy," showing both these men on opposite sides truly believe Luffy will cause a great impact during the war and in the future, like he did when he took out the Yonko Kaido. And with his Dull Fruit, of course, he inherited from Joy Boy, which he is using to cause impact in Egghead Island, Elbaf, and eventually the final war. So Whitebeard and Akainu were on the same page when it comes to their perception of Luffy. Then of course it's the famous or infamous moment of Squardo stabbing Whitebeard. To say this was a monumental moment would be a understatement during Marineford. It showcased Whitebeard decreasing health. A man just a couple of years earlier able to counter Ace in his sleep couldn't avoid Squardo's sword, that even Squardo thought it would take a miracle to hit on the first try. But that's not what I want to focus on. It was the fact that Akainu was able to manipulate Squardo into hurting his own father. This kind of manipulation affected Squardo the entire war from here on out. But what was also interesting was Whitebeard's manipulating Squardo back by saying, "I still love you." Yes, the way they manipulated was different, but with Akainu using straight facts and Whitebeard using empathy, they both use similar manipulation tactics on Squardo, regardless if you want to say, oh, Whitebeard did it for a good reason and Akainu did it for a bad reason, and that family element that a Whitebeard used. But regardless, Oda still highlighted a man being influenced by two monsters without even them laying a hand on Squardo. That's powerful. Like, Akainu didn't force Squardo, and Whitebeard never physically forced Squardo. Their words is what really made him do things during this war. Whitebeard and Akainu's first official clash is an interesting one, as Akainu is stepping on Nugate's supreme grade weapon. This isn't actually shown in the anime, telling him the island won't survive if you continue the way you are, and Whitebeard simply replies, "Then try and stop me, as their, of course, Delphoid abilities clash once more. Their fighting styles are not only similar in the natural disaster element of things, but also the way they fight is like they are trying to overpower one another. It's simply amazing and not surprising because they have such leadership qualities. Of course, they would be dominant in the way they fight as well. When Garp stops Marco from saving Ace, Whitebeard lets his crew know he's just another old marine, and to not get too caught up in his name, Akainu tells him they are from the same age, as in to let Whitebeard know the same way he views Garp is the same way Akainu views him. And Akainu then once again tells him to stop ruining the town, and Whitebeard simply says, "I thought I told you to stop me." These two are constantly disrespecting each other because they simply are two strong-headed leaders butting heads. You ever see that saying where if you met someone similar like you probably wouldn't like them because you're doing the same thing that I'm doing? And that's what I get from this. So them clashing and butting heads during the war in and of itself is a similarity staring right at us during the war. Another similarity I have to mention is Conqueror's Haki. When Luffy uses this type of Haki, you could see him being compared to Whitebeard, who also has Conqueror's Haki, even to the extent of coding his attack during his prime when clashing with the Pirate King Goldie Roger as seen in Oden's flashback. But you're probably thinking, how does this relate to Akainu? Well then, Luffy uses his power. Akainu quickly deduces that it wasn't done consciously, meaning Akainu has some sort of understanding on how this ability works. And with him showing such leadership qualities similar to Whitebeard himself, I believe this confirms him being a Conqueror's Haki user like fellow Fleet Admiral Sengoku and the hero of the Marines Garp, who also in that same moment foreshadowed himself having the power the same time I kind of made that statement. Now some people would of course like to argue and say Aokiji and Kizaru are not confirmed Conqueror's Haki users, so how does that relate to Akainu? Well, Akainu's a Fleet Admiral, and if you think Sengoku and Garp from the older Marines have Conqueror's Haki and there's gonna be no current era Marines that have Conqueror's Haki, you are out of your mind. Now yes, I do believe Whitebeard and Akainu are more similar than you think, but in the way they see things going in the future and actions in general, the way they were strategic during the war, but the way they think and feel are completely different. That's why I kind of called Whitebeard a loser from a bygone age, eventually presenting Ace the facts that his real father figure Roger was the true winner. And I kind of also states Whitebeard for decades never accomplished nothing, never became king. Well, that's because Whitebeard doesn't care about those things while Akainu does. That's why Oda stated he would become the Pirate King in a year if he was the main character. Akainu also confirms how he sweet-talked Squardo, and Whitebeard protecting that idiot who stabbed him as he dies shows he lived an empty life. Akainu finally calls Whitebeard an Admiral of Mountain of Garbage, which triggers Ace, showing him his manipulation skills at work again, the same way Whitebeard manipulated him to join his crew and told him become my son through empathy instead of the facts like Akainu does. So yes, they're different, but they do things in a similar fashion. The final time these two fight is what I talked about earlier, straight raw power, as Whitebeard quakes Akainu from behind, and then Akainu magmas half of Whitebeard's face off. But this doesn't stop here, as Newgate quakes Akainu's ribcage in an epic moment that brings the Marine HQ building down. Even Sengoku is shocked how Whitebeard has that much power with half of his face gone. But Akainu got attacked by Marco and Fista with Haki and Whitebeard's rage, and then took on the entire Whitebeard pirates, commanders, and Crocodile to eventually be only stopped by Red Hair Shanks. These two men were the most durable and powerful during the war. Regardless on how you feel, they are as people, with fans seeing Whitebeard as a pure good pirate and Akainu as a pure evil marine. Talk about irony when it comes to their professions. Now, after the war, there have been several moments from Akainu that still remind me of Whitebeard, even though he has been long dead. Firstly, he asked the Gorosei, how does a rat like Doflamingo make the world bend to his will? Of course, the Gorosei tell Akainu to relax on the disrespect. This reminded me of when Roger asked Whitebeard for Oden to join his crew, and Newgate said, "You trying to take my family to the Pirate King?" Or when Shanks mentioned Blackbeard to Whitebeard and Whitebeard said, I don't rate that guy. I don't respect that guy. The same way Akainu said he doesn't rate or respect Aokiji when the Gorosei mentioned him. And also, Whitebeard told Ace not to go after Blackbeard the same way Akainu told Kizaru not to go after Kaido and Big Mom and Wano because of the unknown samurai force. And Ace going regardless reminded me of Greenbow going to Wano to impress his strong leader Akainu. And lastly, Akainu moving the base of the Marines to the New World instead of Marine 4, the same way Whitebeard made Fishman Island his territory to stop the Powers from plundering the island in their journey to the New World. Both these extreme monsters are very calculated when it comes to decisions that could affect the future, like Whitebeard not going to Wano to take on Kaido after Odin's defeat. Honestly, the way they move when it comes to futuristic moments, it's like their parents. They're so responsible in that fashion. Now, I have to keep it real with you guys. They have huge differences, as seen when Whitebeard was funding his home island during his pirate career, and Akainu was killing innocent civilians during the Ohara incident because of the scholars that might have snuck on the escape ship. Akainu's a savage while Whitebeard is a good dude. But even in the way they think, where Akainu is more fact-based while Whitebeard is more logical, as seen in their interactions during the Marineford War, I just thought it was cool highlighting how the characters are so different, could also be so similar, and there's many other characters that have the unique traits shared and opposed in this One Piece story that I so much enjoy. So if you disagree, debate in the comment section.